Welcome along. It's Wednesday morning. It's Jaron Owen with you all the way through until 10 o'clock this morning. If you want to get involved in the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. We're going to get straight into Congress because it happens this week. Obviously, we've been talking about the equality measures that are being pushed forward by the GPA. Very interesting to see what's going to happen with that. It's overshadowed somewhat the massive debate that we had in advance of Special Congress about championship reforms and restructures. Today, Martin Breheny takes a suture with surgical procedure to this week's proposals and goes, come on, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I would argue that his piece in advance of last Congress gave people the heebie-jeebies, and we'd have been much closer to his preferred solution if we'd taken what had happened at the last Congress and gone through, but we didn't. So
yeah, like it definitely feels that there's been a lot of arguments that are made against this weekend's proposal going to the floor, including by Martin Breheny, that could have been remedied by a lot of what was on the floor with Proposal B.
Or affixed to Proposal B. If they were so incensed by the team in Division 1 who finishes 7th, 6th, like who's going to finish 6th in Division 1?
Yeah. One thing that's kind of just come to mind here is that two things. First of all, Congress being on this time of year, probably not a great idea if they want to get everybody in the country talking about it, because in fairness, the Irish Independent and Martin Brenny's piece is one of the only pieces I've read about it this week, because there is actual Gaelic games on. The National League has got the story of the demise of one of the greatest teams of all time. Limerick aren't winning games in the hurling. There is a lot to talk about on the pitch. The club finals were absolutely astonishing. So people are pretty busy when it comes to covering Gaelic games at the moment, whereas the Special Congress kind of fitted beautifully into a void last October, November. But second to that, I think there's also been a lack of noise around this weekend's Special Congress because people are just unenthused about the motion that's going to the floor. Proposal B had everybody talking because it was radical. This one this weekend is like, meh, I guess it's good.
I don't know if it is good though. I actually don't know if it's good. I don't think it's really progress at all. So what has happened is that as Breheny points out, the provincial councils have won all of the back channel arguments, and they are still at the core and the centre of the competition. So we are still going to have whoopings handed out in the first round of the Connacht, Leinster, Ulster and Munster championships to the minnows, who will then be shuttled off to a B competition called Tailteann Cup. And so I think your phrase was, it's basically an extended version of the Super 8s, which is what we're getting.
Yeah. So 2 sets of Super 8s would be your All-Ireland Championship, and 24 games to eliminate 4 teams in the groups of 4 as well would be another stick to beat it with. Like, I do think that with Dublin's poor form at the moment, I think that were we presented with the 2019 All-Ireland football structure, it actually might have been good this year. Like, I think that
Super 8s.
Yeah, as in the thing that we actually did have. So if we're comparing that to what we would have, I think the differences are very small. And because of the fact that only the bottom teams get knocked out of these groups of 4, I think that level of seeding is relatively meaningless. The seeding, of course, coming from the National League, which for me is a good idea. I do think it is progress. I'm not saying it's big progress. I think it's better than the thing that we have at the moment, which is the qualifiers and straight knockout from the last 8. I think that it will be better, and I think there will be good matches. But I think one of the main reasons for that is because the top 8 teams in the country are all pretty close together at the moment.
Yeah, well, you can make the case the top 10 teams are getting closer together because Dublin have come back to the pack, and maybe we're entering a situation where the top 15 teams might be levelling out, where, you know, Cavan are currently in Division 4, but they're playing better than that, and they have a footballing population that suggests they should be in Division 2 and that they're capable of competing at that level. So, like, if there's 2 divisions where the teams are all good, then maybe this works out. But the problem is the weather over the last couple of weeks, right? Like, what we should be playing now are matches that don't have any significance really to the end of the season. But what will happen is that some good team is going to be playing into a gale force wind in the final round of the Division 2 league, and the wind will turn round and they won't get promoted, or they'll get relegated, and suddenly they'll be into the Tailteann Cup, and it's like, because somebody else wins through by a quirk of the draw to the provincial final, they're grandfathered in, you're booted out, and it's like, what? But we were better.
That's the game. That's the nature of it. Like I do think that comes down to a different problem as well, though, with regards to playing intercounty football in the worst time of the year, and it's not going to change the fact that the vast majority of the games are going to be played in terrible weather. The National League will still be the best competition probably in Ireland, except for the fact that it'll be played in the worst time of year in Ireland. So that doesn't make a whole pile of sense. I do think that the 4 groups of 4 will be relatively exciting if like it does have a lack of jeopardy, and I do see this as positive if we're looking to make progress, and positive if we're looking for something better down the line, which is taking out that really unfortunate bit in the middle, the unfairness of the provincial championships.
And it could be another 25 years before we get the opportunity to tackle that again, because they won the argument. They were the ones who put the press gang out and lobbied the votes and shop stewarded, what is it, whipped the votes. How could I have forgotten? 7:35 this morning. If you want to get in touch with us, 087 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Or of course, you can always leave a comment in the YouTube stream. We're going to talk more about Congress in just a second with Enda McGinley, the manager of the Antrim footballers, but also, of course, an Ergal Kieran clubman. There's been a strong reaction to the decision making over the last number of years about the age groups at underage level in particular. There's been a number of motions proposed. Some of them have been taken off the table about the under 17 age group and the under 19 age group. We'll get to Enda McGinley in just 1 second to talk about that, because that I think is actually going to end up being one of the big sticking points at Congress. It's certainly one of the points that people have been most interested in and exercised by, and we'll find out why. We'll find out now why. Actually, we've got Enda McGinley with us. Enda, good morning to you. How are you?
Ger, I'm good.
So listen, we're talking here about the under 17 and under 19 and the recalibration of the minor age group from under 18 to under 17. From your own experience in Ergal Kieran, what has been the impact?
The impact is simply that you see young, good, keen footballers at 16 and a half years of age end their underage football. And that has seemed nuts right from the start when these proposals were brought in. When you see it in action, when you see the young players that don't have any underage football next year or any credible underage football next year, you think that is just simply not right. And while some of them will stick at it, they are at least 3-4 years away physically from being able to compete realistically for senior football places. At the very age where life sort of starts to open up and you start to have loads of other lifestyle temptations and everything else, we are essentially cutting them off from a really good, meaningful age level. And the question of why we changed from the original has to be asked all the more. But I think just even putting the authority back with the counties and letting them decide what's best for them, because the under 17 thing just doesn't seem to fit. Certainly most clubs that I've been talking to, most players cannot understand it.
You raised the point about why the decision was made in the first place. The GAA will say, and I'm not making their argument for them, but just that they will say that there was a couple of reports, one specifically around burnout, where it did seem to be a fairly big issue, that kids were being torn in different areas by particularly the demands of intercounty training, the leaving cert. Sometimes it was college students and them, acclimatising to that, and then also playing for their club minor team, their county or their club under 21 team, etc. And that was one of the main kind of thrusts of the discussion around this. Has that not been, is that not right in your view at club level? Does that not actually carry through?
The problem is, so in addressing, I think the burnout issue was there in reports, and I think theoretically it was certainly potential. I know I myself came through that sort of theme of huge amount of training in those age groups, and most players did. It was what we were used to. I think now with sports science and everything else, I think that can be better managed. But critically there, you're absolutely bang on. It was brought in to address burnout. And burnout was a thing that affected the very top level of club player, who was both club minor, county minor, club senior, schools football. And those players, those are the few players that probably would be able to step up after 17 years of age into their senior rank, because you're dealing with the elite. But the dropout figures, and somehow I think the GAA conflated that the burnout was the key thing behind dropout. I don't believe it was. I don't believe there's any evidence to suggest it might have been a factor, but it wasn't the only one. Dropout is about engagement and having good, meaningful competition there and enjoying your sport. dropping people from underage football, from underage hurling football from under 16 and a half or 17 is just crazy. And the burnout issue did not apply to the vast majority of club footballers who at 17, 18 years of age, their only football is with their club.
Did the under-19 age group not work? Is that not attractive enough to keep that group of players that you're talking about, who aren't good enough to go to senior, who aren't ready for that, and who aren't going to play Intercounty? Did the under-19 not really take off? Is that is there a reason behind that? Is that fixable at all?
I think the issue here is that to try and make the under-17 thing stick, they created this thing that somehow will create a great under-19 competition, having never been able to run good under-21 competitions at clubs. It was always a wee sort of push thing into a corner. It was never really a meaningful competition at all for players. You were either playing senior or you were playing minor. You happened to then play a bit of under-21, but it was never ran properly. The under-17s is really popular with fixture committees because it separates the youth football from the senior football and allows fixtures to be run cleaner. But if that's the case, and if that's a benefit of the under-17s, then it's completely false for the GAA to then somehow claim that the under-19 competition will be run brilliantly, when by moving to under-17 you removed the slight issue at under-18. Under-19, the crossover is going to be even bigger with your club senior sides and your club reserve sides. So to try and get a proper fixture campaign in there isn't going to happen in an already condensed club season. So they will try and argue, and they're pushing under-19 at county level. That's a different thing. What works for county does not apply for club, because the crossover between underage and senior is greater, and the under-19 competitions are not going to get off the ground properly or in any meaningful way to hold on to players properly at that age group. It's perfectly fine for the GAA to come out and say, well, this is the solution. How are fixture committees going to work a proper under-19 competition into their calendar? I just don't see it. The under-17s will be the end of underage football for the vast majority of footballers. Okay,
Cara Kane's been writing about this in the Irish News today. He's spoken to John McEntee as well, and this seems to be something that certainly... So there wasn't originally... a proposal from Pat McEnany's club, which he has taken off. I think they have taken off the Clara this weekend at Congress. What is the situation more than likely going to happen at Congress, as far as you understand it at the moment, Enda? Because you've come out very strongly about this week, so it's obviously something that you feel and you're getting feedback on from other clubs as well as your own.
I haven't met anybody involved at club level or with club minors or used to players at that level that have seen at any stage since this suggestion was mooted that this was a good idea. I think it makes sense from a theory point of view. I can understand, I see some stuff coming out about overuse injuries, but the primary age range that the biggest changes happen from overuse injuries is actually down at under 14 level when the body's really developing. Then yes, the stresses apply on up, but again, to the normal club footballers, that's not the issue. It's giving them credible competition. And it just, whenever you look physically at lads at 16 and a half, 17, the game has advanced so much at senior level in terms of strength and conditioning, and that's at club level, that to put 16 and a half, 17-year-olds under the pressure to physically get up to senior grade is possibly dangerous for them as well. But it's just not right in terms of their development. And by cutting them off, like at 16 and a half years of age, to say, and there's fellas this year in my club that I can see, really good young fellas, and 16 and a half years of age, they're done with underage football. It doesn't make sense.
Is there a world in which the intercounty game and the club game could be completely separate? And I think one of the points made in Cara's piece is that there's a desire for uniformity from Croke Park and from the powers that be, that actually everybody will have the same system and everybody will know exactly what's happening. But is there a world in which actually the best thing is that the clubs can continue on with their under 16 and minor and piecemeal under 21, and that the intercounty game could be under 17 and under 19 if they so desire?
I don't see a particular argument against that. I think they can probably continue. It'll be up to development squads and county squads to be able to pick players, and potentially then for, say, your top level 18-year-old who might have been playing county under 17, well then at 18 they can concentrate on their club minors and on making that step up to club seniors. And that's the other thing, by cutting a straight line between under 17 and senior. For me, you're always better to play across 2 age groups. You play at your own age group where you're the top player and you can really look to have a huge impact in games, and then you play a level up, which is a tougher age group and where you really have to sort of work harder at your skills, at your game, to try and compete at that level up. For a really good 17-year-old now, we're letting them lord it at their under 17 grade. They get no senior experience at all, and suddenly then they're cut completely and their only football is senior grade. So again, it just doesn't work from a developmental thing for those players as well. It works neatly from a fixture committee point of view, I understand that, but from the players' point of view, it just creates huge opportunities for dropout. In terms of needing to be the same again across club and county, I'm not convinced of that. But my thing, like, the motion is about putting the power back to individual counties to allow them to decide. And you're saying there that the GAA would like uniformity, but sure, look at how senior grades are run throughout the county. Counties have different ways of moving between junior, intermediate and senior. They run their senior championships and senior leagues completely different. There's star games in some counties, there's championship leagues, there's straight knockout championships. Counties have their own power to run it at that, and that seems to be hugely successful from a club championship point of view and doesn't matter across different grades. So I can't see why the same autonomy isn't offered out to county to run their underage settings. And what's the drawback if counties do decide to go with the under 18 route within their own county? Is that egg on the face for Croke Park? Is that what the problem is? If it turns out that all the counties, or the vast majority of counties, stick with under 17, well, then that's vindication from Croke Park and they can tidy it up in a couple of years' time. Or it leaves you great research to be able to truly look at the impact of dropout or the impact of overuse injuries, because I don't think there is they'll quote these papers, but nothing is actually researched on the impact of the current changes and how that will add or take away from dropout or overuse injuries. They keep on quoting it. This would be your perfect chance to definitively answer the question of what route is best if counties choose different routes. But I think, honestly, the vast majority of counties would move to under 18, under 16, under 14, the way it always was, the way there was very little issues about. And the burnout thing, which was affecting your elite county level underage player, did not affect your vast majority of club players. But once again, we brought in wide-ranging rule changes to suit a very small group of people.
All right, and we'll leave it there. Thanks a million for that, and we'll see what happens at Congress this weekend. It's Enda McGinley, obviously the current Antrim manager, physiotherapist, so probably potentially the most qualified guest we can possibly have, and somebody who has been involved at underage level in his club and has come through that system as a successful player and coach in the past too. So there's big depth of feeling out there about this, and I wasn't quite sure why, but I definitely have a much better feeling and understanding of it now. So if anybody has any views on that and you want to get in touch, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. A reminder, OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, your best face forward with their new and improved razors.